Hello. Did you know that queer people exist and have existed as long as humans have been around? Yet for most of history, they have been overlooked, silenced, and oppressed to the extent that even queer representation today makes most people go, what are these strange new concepts I need to learn to refamiliarize myself with the world? Well, fortunately, while queerness is neither new nor strange, we at The Mesh are here to help you understand. This video series is a curation of unique experiences and stories, as told by those who live these stories themselves. Welcome to
about myself, right? So I'm just gonna go over the standard stuff. I have an engineering degree, and since then I have not worked in that background. Again, standard issue millennial, like I said. Right now, I'm working with a nonprofit. We focus on queer inclusive gender sensitization. And I think there's gonna be more stuff coming up about me as we talk. So I think we can do that.
All right. So you mentioned earlier that you had a pretty atypical childhood. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't remember much of my childhood. I don't know why. It's just that part of my life sort of goes blank. But I do remember growing up with very controlling parents. I would feel anxious all the time doing for any little thing that I wanted to do. I would always think, okay, am I going to get criticized for this? So that was fun. And then another big part of my childhood was me feeling a lot of guilt around my identity, right? So early on, very early on, I realized that I am attracted to like people in general. So for me, it was never restricted like towards based on someone's gender. But then somehow internally, solely because I look at advertisements and consume media, it felt that the feelings that I were feeling were wrong or perverted. So, like a big part of my childhood was feeling guilt, and I felt like a perverted monster at a very young age. That was fun. So, yeah, I think that's about it.
What was your schooling like? Did you ever attend Catholic school?
I did not. That sounds terrifying. I'm very glad that was not a part of my life. I think school was weird for me in the sense that I've always had trouble making friends. I don't know why. I am, perfectly fun to be around. I know I didn't used to be like that. I was insufferable. And it made sense why I was insufferable. Um, but then I think somewhere around as a teenager, it became easier for me to make connections with like my peers. And I did try to put myself into basically, I tried to emulate certain behaviors in order to be liked. And again, like this emulated behavior also comes from my ideas of what people like. So I don't know if it was exactly informed based on the reality, but then for sure, like a lot of my own thoughts and ideas of what is acceptable or normal came into play there. So that
Right.
was fun.
Yeah, I asked about Catholic schooling because you mentioned guilt. Because That is a trademark of having attended Catholic school. Like Catholic guilt is a whole phenomenon. But anyway, you mentioned that you work for a non-profit organization. Tell us a little about your work. Do you find it fulfilling?
I do, for sure. So, to give a little bit of context to that, um, there was a point, like just a few years ago, where I was feeling very helpless, and I was feeling like, okay, everything is so pointless. There, like throughout history, there's been so much happening, and then not much has changed. When I
The
say that, I'm
classic,
not talking about it in objective terms,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but then the essence of it, right? There's not a
Yeah,
lot of, sorry.
the classic millennial nihilism spiral.
I told you I'm a standard issue delusion
Yeah,
millennial. I
yeah,
am, yes. So, right, I was going through all these things. But then at some point, um, like it became important to me, to myself personally, that whether or not I believe that something is going to change, me showing up matters to me. Like the effect of that is
yeah.
someone else's headache. What the output is going to be is someone else's headache. But to me, it matters that I show up. So that's how I got into, like, that's how I started working with this organization, right? And again, the work that we do, I wouldn't go and say that, okay, it is very radical, even though I believe it is very radical, because we are trying to reach youngsters at a stage where they need to be aware that they have autonomy over their own bodies, and where they have a chance to learn that different people can express themselves in different ways and that it is okay. Again, this personally sits, I mean, this means a lot to me personally because I grew up with a lot of guilt around my own identity. And like, so yeah, it feels great working here.
Yeah. Speaking of guilt, growing up, given your upbringing, you must have had, and you did mention that you had a pretty turbulent relationship with your identity. Could you tell us a little about the struggles you faced?
Um, so in the first half of my life, right, a lot of it was around, as in, what I'm trying to say is that I don't remember being explicitly told not to feel certain things, or I was never explicitly told about homophobia, queer phobia, transphobia. It was like never verbalized or displayed through action, but it was something that I picked up on from the media that I was consuming at the time, which is like mostly ads on TV, TV shows, movies, and things like that.
Through cultural
Um,
influences.
that's it. So the most absurd part of all this to me is that just based on that, how much of things did I internalize that made me hate myself for no reason. And then there was this other part of the standard non-acceptance of neurodivergent behaviors, like don't speak this way, don't behave this way, don't dress this way. Those are things that were explicitly told to me. And I think for the longest time I was trying to sort of build a personality that I thought would be accepted by other people. So, for example, if my parents are saying something to me about behaving a certain way, that immediately gets categorized in my brain as, oh, okay, this is correct. Oh, okay, this is wrong. There was a very interesting feedback loop also. And so, for the most part of my life, I was trying to build a personality that I'm projecting to other people. So I don't think I ever really had the space where I could just be myself. That, yeah, that didn't really pan out, and it is showing now. It is showing, right? So I think, yeah, a big part of me, like, coming to terms with my identity also only started when I moved out of that environment where I was constantly feeling judged. I think I'm being a little incoherent. Like, please feel
Oh,
free
no, no, no,
to.
absolutely not. Like,
All
I'm,
right. Thank you for the validation.
yeah, and of course, what you said about building a personality, I think that's a very standard struggle that neurodivergent people go through. Um, so accepting yourself for who you are is an entire process, right? That being said, were there any specific moments that catalyzed this process for you?
Um, I don't think so. It is like I cannot pin any specific memories or any specific events to this whole journey. And like, I also want to start off by saying that I have still not come to terms with my identity.
Right.
There is a lot of questioning going on in my head. There are a lot of negative thoughts and feelings. I am struggling, to be very honest. But then over the years, I have had the space to be more honest with myself, which has helped. um, Again, I don't have like any specific memories or events associated with this process, right? But I would like definitely say that having non-judgmental spaces, being around people who are sensitive, being around people who are accepting, has really helped me feel comfortable with myself. Like, that is the starting point for me, because before that, I was telling myself that, okay, there's something wrong with you because of all the feedback that I'm getting from the external world.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, of course, acceptance is an ongoing process. I think it goes on for the rest of your life because to live is to change. So we are constantly evolving. And as for the struggle aspect of it, I don't know if you've heard of the band The Mountain Goats, but John Daniel of the Mountain Goats uh, had this very powerful quote about. So the gist of the quote was that there is no joy in suffering. Like there is nothing to be found in suffering. There is no honor. There is no glory. But there is so much life affirming jubilation in struggling despite the suffering.
Yes, I feel that very deeply. um, Again, this is also something that I'm learning over time with age. Not a fun realization. I am very, very mad that that is how things work, but also, yeah, I can handle that.
Uh, Earlier you mentioned different facets of your identity. Like, could you elaborate on these aspects and what intersectionality means to you in that context?
Yeah, for sure. So I always joke about how I would be called forced representation if I were a character in like a TV series or a movie. Um, and so I think for me, like, there are a few labels that I like to use. Again, I self censor depending on who I'm talking to, who I'm around, who
Of
I'm
course.
with. Yeah. But then there is a reason that I use those labels. To me, using certain labels is also a chance to express that I have a very solid stance on this particular part of my identity. I'm not going to be silent about it. and I'm not going to allow anyone to dismiss it. So that is the relationship that I have with this stuff.
Right.
So I would say that I'm Dalit, neurodivergent, endosex, panromantic, pansexual, transgender, non-binary, relationship anarchist.
Right.
It's a mouthful. I do not use like all of these at once ever.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, like these are like very important things about myself that I would want my circle to know, like my people to know.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people think of labels as like stifling or suffocating. But on the other hand, I think a lot of people find a lot of comfort in labels because of the sense of belonging they bring.
I am
Because
definitely in the second category.
yeah, because see, if there's a label for something, it means that that thing already exists, and there are others like that. So it makes you feel like a part of a community almost.
Absolutely. Otherwise,
Uh,
you feel like, why am I feeling this way? There must be something wrong with me. I am the only one pointing these things out. This seems like a perfectly normal interaction. Why does it make me upset? And you have all these weird
yeah,
inner monologues that, like, you get acknowledgement of these feelings, and I think in some ways validation when you see other people talking about the same things.
yeah, absolutely. Also, when you
Right.
mentioned self-censoring earlier, was it as a means of self-preservation?
Absolutely. Yes. I am not, very eager to get into a conversation with someone about any of these labels, especially someone that I'm just meeting or just introducing myself to. I'm just not ready to handle that. I do
Of
not
course.
want to handle that. There is already too much going on. So I am choosing not to handle that. So that is the thought process for me when I'm like doing the self censorship.
Yeah, and uh, that attitude does not necessarily pertain to people who belong to marginalized communities. I think that's just a general human thing.
No, absolutely. Yes. I think we it's an essential part that we need to do in order to maintain our whatever level of sanity that we are at,
Yeah,
right? Otherwise, every interaction, you're going into it with this assumption that okay, something might go wrong, and like you get stuck in that pessimistic headspace, and it's not good for anyone.
yeah.
Why just don't put yourself through that.
Especially when it comes to communication, I think being neurodivergent kind of exacerbates the whole situation.
Sure. It's just like we don't make a lot of um associations in a very, I want to use the word intuitive, in a very intuitive manner, right?
Hmm.
So when I am connecting two different thoughts with each other, I find myself explaining that connection very often. Like, how did you get from here to there? Why are you correlating this and that? And I have my reasons. I understand that you don't see it that way. Um, but then I guess I have a lot of interactions with people who um, believe that they are either superior or inferior for thinking about things in a different way from how I do that. Um,
Yeah, I
so
think
yes, having
yeah,
go
I
on.
think being neurodivergent kind of, humans already have a pattern recognition mechanism built into their brains. I think being neurodivergent just like makes the patterns a lot more tangential.
It's like a fast tracking through the pattern forming process.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, so moving on, walk us through a day in your life. Has your routine changed in any significant way over the last few years?
Um, so, the second part of the question, the answer is for sure yes. It took me a long time to do very basic things that I need to do to take care of myself, which I also categorize under the label of adulting. Because then, if I call it adulting, then I can bite my teeth and go through those things, but I can also complain about it whenever I
Yeah,
feel like. So a day in my life is, to be very honest, pretty boring, right? Um, there's a it like starts with black coffee. Excuse me. Yeah. So it starts with black coffee, and then there might be. I'm sorry. I just need a moment.
yeah, no worries.
Sorry. Mm, yeah, I'm back. So I was saying that it starts with black coffee, and then I just spend some time lazing around. I need
Hmm.
that time for myself. Can you quickly confirm if I'm still connected?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, you are.
I don't see or hear anything. Thank you. So, um, right, I need that lazing around time for myself. I cannot do anything without that. So that pretty much takes up the first half of my day.
Hmm.
At which point I get into this downward spiral where I feel like, oh no, I haven't done anything productive today. But then, luckily, these days, that does help me get into the productive part of my day. I get a lot of work done, fortunately. Good for me. And then I feel a little bit better, and then I feel like I can relax. So I take a little bit more time for myself to catch up with my friends, get into my doom scrolling so that I can consume my precious memes and my precious reels. And then I, yeah, wrap it up for the evening. So there may be some socializing events in there, like maybe twice a week or so. But yeah, like pretty standard, pretty uneventful otherwise.
No, I completely relate to that needing some time to just mentally psych yourself up for the day. I think everyone who is neuroatypical like suffers from executive dysfunction to some extent, where you know you have to do something and you can do something and it will take just 5 minutes, but you just can't get started.
Tell me about it. I've gone through phases of days together, sometimes weeks together, sometimes months together to do these, like supposedly simple tasks. So the morning part of it, I also refer to that as transitioning to real life.
Right.
Does that make sense?
In a way it does. Yeah. I get what you're trying to get across.
Yeah. So yeah, fun times.
Right. So tell us a little about your journey from growing up in Chennai to where you are now in Bangalore.
So for me, all right, I grew up in Chennai.
Right.
Mostly, I spent 1 year of my time when I was in fifth standard in Delhi, which is where I picked up Hindi. Like, that's the only reason I know I can converse in Hindi. Even though Hindi was my second language in school, but then that was not why I can speak Hindi today. It was only because of that 1 year that I spent in Delhi. Then I returned to Chennai. I grew up there. The first chance that I get, I move. I move out. Right. So I moved to Trichy for my bachelor's, and so I spent 4 years there. Not a very fun time again. After that, I moved to Mumbai for work. That was also a decision that was taken in order to be as far away from Chennai as possible, but not so far away that I feel unsafe.
Right.
So I spent 3 years in Mumbai, and then I moved to Bangalore in 2020, right in the middle of lockdown. Right. So I had
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, yes. When I moved here, I had to do the whole quarantine process, like the home quarantine thing and all that. But it's been nice. Like in all of these places, I put efforts to form my circle with my people, my friends, and that has paid off big time. That has paid off big time. It's been really nice to have the support system that I need in a place that's new, in a place where I don't know the local language, where I have no idea how to go about even the most basic things. And it was really nice to have support through all of that. I'm sure that I would have made a lot of unwise decisions if not for that. And it has also helped me um, understand, like, on a very basic level, how humans function, like how we seek comfort in very little things, and how that therefore informs our choices, even the most basic ones. Um, so yeah, I like that I've been to these different places, and I hope in the future that I can also stay in other places. Kolkata is a place where I want to live at least like for a year or two.
Well, I'm in
Let's
Kolkata now.
Yay. Yeah, it's definitely a place that I want to live in for at least like 1 or 2 years, right? Maybe that's there for me somewhere in my future. So yeah,
So,
that's about it.
are there any other ways in which your diverse experiences in different cities and towns shaped your perspective on life in general? Not just about people, just you know, all aspects of life.
So I moved out of my home when I was very young, right? Because like just after I finished my 12th standard. So I learned to live on my own, sort of on my own. So when I say that, what I mean is when I was living with my parents, right? There is always a system to keep me in check. In check, as in
Right.
making sure that I'm eating, making sure that I'm getting my homework done, things like that. In very, very small levels, like I still had some routine. And
Yeah.
that sort of broke apart when I moved out, which was not something I was expecting. I was finding it very difficult to regulate myself, to do very basic things. Like even eating was something I was struggling with. And like I'm sure that you can relate to this as well, right?
Yeah. 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 Because
So, hmm.
right, you think of these as like small individual isolated tasks, right? You in your mind it's impossible to imagine them like compounding and building up and like getting to a point where it gets out of hand.
I was just talking to a friend of mine today, and we were talking about how exhausting it is to take a shower. Like, so I go for days without like taking a shower. Luckily, Bangalore weather is a little bit forgiving in that aspect. And then it just like it's not something that I look forward to because I know that it's gonna take effort. So I don't want to do it. And then if I don't want to do something, why would I do it? But I think going back to what I was talking about, interacting with a lot of different people, interacting with other neurodivergent people, understanding how they set up systems to help them with these things, to help them stay like on track, right? um, I learned a lot from that. I am incorporating a lot of that in my life, and I'm very grateful for that. Like, I don't know how to verbalize it, but this has impacted my life in very big ways. So yeah, there is credit to that over there.
The funny thing is, when you're out of the shower, it feels like a drag to get in the shower. But once you're in the shower, it feels like a drag to get out.
I think
Yeah.
like even drying yourself off
Yeah.
feels so draining. It feels so draining. It's like we have inertia, the
Yeah,
concept of
exactly.
inertia, but
Exactly.
applied to these tasks.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Just any kind of state change is difficult. But yeah, you mentioned that you lived in Delhi briefly. What do you think of Delhi?
Okay, like I don't remember much of living in Delhi. I think like the metro lines were just starting up when I was there. So like my family and I, we just went on a outing on a metro. I think we went all the way to Dwarka and then returned. I don't remember which stop we started from. Um, I do remember that I loved the roads there in the city. Was not a big fan of how people used to drive, but then the roads were so fun to just drive on. Um, I again with respect to school, it was weird. We like used to do daily morning prayers, and then they used to conduct these Havan ceremonies inside the basement, like a basement full
I've
of kids and like a fire thing going on in a
Yeah,
basement.
I've heard of that. Like I have friends who attended Hindu schools, and yeah, so it seems like even if you don't attend Catholic school, you do not really escape the you know
You cannot. It's a universal thing, right? Just
yeah.
takes different forms and different words and different reference books, but at the end of the day, like it boils down to it's a very universal experience to have, I feel. So what was I saying? Yeah, so that was what Delhi was like for me. Oh, and I found it so hard to make friends there. Oh my God. Which is a part of why I ended up learning to speak Hindi. I think I picked it up in a span of 3 months since I started going to school. The first word that I learned uh, was from someone calling me Pagal, right? They thought it would be a fun prank to tell me to refer to myself as Pagal. I mean, it was a big deal back then. I was in fifth standard. I know it sounds very
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
normal now, but yeah.
All right.
Where all have you lived, Abhishek?
I have lived in. So for the first 18 years of my life, I lived in Jamshedpur, which is my hometown. I attended school there. I attended Catholic school there for my entire life.
I am
Uh,
so sorry.
it was well, for better or for worse, it's turned me into the person I am now. Uh, um, it was a small town, a small-ish town, and this is like a whole thing to get into, so I don't want to get into it. But like, it's the only city with a population of over a lakh which does not have a municipal corporation because uh, there is a
Because
because there is a company that's exploiting a legal loophole to prevent us from having local self government. But yeah, otherwise Jamshedpur is fun. Like if you head out of your house and you drive for 5 minutes, you are guaranteed to see like hills and mountains over the horizon. It's also a very green city. It's very it's It's a very scenic city. Not scenic in the sense that like how you describe that feeling or something as scenic, but it's scenic in a very beautiful merge of urban and uh, ecological.
Like coexistence
Yeah,
fantasy.
yeah. Then after that, I graduated from high school and I went to Ashoka, and which is in Sonipat, which is a village in the middle. Rai is a village in Sonipat in the middle of nowhere in Haryana, and that was quite different from my life up to that point. Although our college had shuttles that ran from campus to Delhi every half an hour, so I would frequently visit Delhi. I have a lot of love for Delhi. Delhi is one of my favorite. I think Delhi is probably my second favorite city in India after Bangalore. And I'd love to, once I'm done with my master's program in Kolkata, I would love to go back to Delhi. Um, Besides Delhi, I lived in Bangalore very briefly. And by very briefly, I mean very briefly, like 2 weeks. And
I was expecting you to say like a few months.
no. Just
Yeah, that
two
was
weeks.
very brief.
Yeah, I lived there for 2 weeks, and now I am in Kolkata. Kolkata has been so. I've always had love for Kolkata. As a Bengali, I mean, maybe or maybe not for that reason. But whenever I visited Kolkata, there was always this magical feeling because I always visited around winter, and they celebrate Christmas really ostentatiously. So all right, and we're back again. Sorry for the technical difficulties, for viewers, but let's get back into it. So, Sujitha, you said that you're not into gaming yourself, but you've become familiarized with video game culture through memes and other video game content through cultural osmosis. Tell us a little about your interest in meme culture, both generally and also with respect to like video games.
Yep, that is something I love to talk about. So for me, memes are like this windows into entirely new cultures. So like even in the memes that I'm consuming, right? If I look at the so let me categorize my feed into generic stuff and then the Tamil memes. There is so much difference, like such a vast difference between like the discourse that is going on here and the discourse that is going on there. And I think I'm just glad that I can participate in all of it at once, like enjoy all of that at once without having to pick one or the other. With respect to gaming, I have a lot of friends who are very interested in video games. I'm not one of those people. I do not have the focus required for it, or I may also have a mental block against playing games because even in the few times that I've tried, because my friends introduced me to things like Minecraft and Cult of the Lamb and Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring is a very bad game to suggest to someone who
Yeah,
doesn't.
who's just starting out. Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
terrible suggestion.
it's not a great idea for a first timer sort of a person. Right. So even when I was like trying these out, I could feel like I would tell myself that, okay, you don't have the hand-eye coordination required for this, as if I was on a field. But then there is a funny incident that I want to share. Like when I was trying to play Elden Ring, my friend left the room and he comes back and I'm complaining, like, why can't I do anything? And then turns out there are a few more buttons on the controller that I missed. And I remember feeling that was a very funny story.
Hmm.
So I never got into the games myself, even though I wanted to participate. I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to do something with them that they like, because I thought it would be fun. But apparently, it was not fun for me. Now, like with the memes that are going around, I still feel like I can participate without actually participating. I have the best of both worlds. I can still relate to the common moments that people face when they are playing specific games. But then I also don't need to know it from experience because I know it from a meme that I saw. Because I saw that meme, I know that, oh, okay, this is something that you all commonly face an issue with. Yeah, and I think I like feeling like I can appreciate an inside joke. I can enjoy the feeling of knowing something about something, even though I didn't know of it because of my experience with that particular thing, but because someone else told me about it. That it just feels nice to be included, is what I'm trying to
Right,
say.
right, right. So, I completely relate to what you said about being able to enjoy two completely culturally different spheres of memes. Because when I was growing up, at a very formative age, I had uh, mostly exposure to the Anglo sphere, like Western memes, because there wasn't like that much of a meme culture in India. But then it slowly developed in India, and I'm glad it did. But my question here is, and just put a pin in it. We'll talk about this at length later, but just for now, um, is wanting to be a polyglot, like is wanting to be a polyglot, does it have anything to do with like wanting to enjoy memes from other cultures and other?
So I have people like all over the country in my friend circle, like in my online friend circle. And I feel FOMO when they share memes in their regional languages. And I can't even like figure out what they're talking about. So my aspirations towards being a polyglot is not just in the I want to be able to converse with someone fluently. Excuse me. Sorry. It's not just in the I want to be able to converse with someone fluently, but it's also about unlocking entire new cultures. Unlocking is the word I would use for it, right? Um, I'm gonna quickly do something.
All right.
Okay, great. Yeah, I accidentally snoozed the alarm that I had, so I just went and dismissed it so that we can continue without disturbances. Yeah, so my aspirations come entirely from wanting to be able to appreciate memes. Like that is a big part of me wanting to learn, pick up new languages.
You know what you know what the worst betrayal is, when a meme starts off in English, the first 5 or 6 words are in English, and then it just transitions into some other language. I feel so cheated.
Understand?
I feel so cheated.
I know. It's like a stab in your heart. Um, like how do I want to ask you how your relationship with meme culture is, how your is.
So I had unrestricted internet access at probably too early an age. Like I absolutely should not have been online at the time that I was. Um, there were different pipelines I fell into. um, sort of weird, dangerously close to like uh, alt-right pipelines. It's very it's very it's like a rain slick precipice, right? Like any young man who feels alienated, who feels disillusioned, it's very easy for such men to fall into like the alt-right pipeline. But thankfully, like university played a huge role in me getting out of that. It because what I realized is a lot of bigotry just comes from ignorance. People hate certain kinds of people because they've never met those kinds of people. And then you go to university and you meet a very diverse crowd, you meet all sorts of people, and you're like, hey, they're just like me. Why should I hate them? And I'm really grateful that I got to attend a university like Ashoka because it, um, you know, opened my eyes to a lot of things. I would say it practically saved my life. It saved me from becoming like a terrible, terrible person. So shout out to Ashoka.
Yeah, I do think that with having easier access to internet, I feel like it's also become easier to basically put out media that just groups certain people into a monolith, as if individual people don't have their own separate identities, they don't have
Hmm.
their own separate thought processes. And the dangerous effect of that is that as you keep consuming the same kind of media,
Yeah.
it also becomes easier for you to just categorize specific said people as a monolith, even though that's not how it works in real life.
Yeah.
So yeah, fun times.
Um, so a lot of neurodivergent folk turn to memes as an interest. Would you say that was the case for you? And also, did you have any other special interests?
So the first part of it, right? Like for sure, yes. I think it's very, very easy and very, very convenient for me to get into a headspace where I can doom scroll endlessly and just have new content popping up in front of my eyes constantly.
It's like reverse
Uh,
meditation.
what was that?
It's like reverse meditation.
That is a very accurate description. It puts me in this comfort zone of sorts, right? Where I can disconnect myself from um, basically the real world. So
Right.
I can take a break from having to worry about, okay, this is what I need to do next, this is what I need to do next. Especially like when I'm stuck in like a procrastination freeze of sorts.
Hmm.
It definitely like provides me that space where I can sort of just disconnect myself. It's not very productive, it's not very healthy, but for some reason it helps. So I'm gonna use that.
Hmm.
I think outside of that, I'm always trying to get FaceTime with my friends. I want to hang out as much as possible, but then also in the most laziest ways. So it's just like coming up with different things to do. I think when I'm with my friends, we talk about so many different things. Like I think I would give a lot of unsolicited advice on how to organize your things, as in your physical things in your house, to make your life easier. I would like I'm constantly telling people how to do little things,
Do
and I
you
have my
ask
reasons for that.
do you
Yeah,
ask them if things spark joy?
can you repeat that for me?
Do you ask them if things spark joy?
I do not. But yeah, I mean, I could. I think at this point, I'm restricting myself to just, uh, you know, whispering in their ears that maybe this is not something you should keep around. Maybe this is something you should let go of. That's the angle that I'm doing it from right now. So yeah, there's that. I offer unsolicited advice on how to make things easier for yourself, right? Because I feel like I've been through the same experiences and this is what has worked for me. Please try it out. In my mind, I feel like I see it as me being helpful. Then I keep offering uh, to do someone's hair, especially if they have longer hair. I'm like, hey,
Hmm.
can I braid your hair?
Oh my God. My best friend from class, she did box braids for me when I had longer hair. It was,
So cool.
yeah.
You need to show me a picture of that later.
I will, I will, I will. I actually, so a lot of people are very, what do you call it? You know, they do not like their hair being touched, but I am the exact opposite. I love it when people play with my hair, they stroke my hair, they style my hair. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a very, for me at least, it's a very fun thing for me to do with someone else, right? Because in the time that I'm doing that, we're also having a conversation, and then I'm also getting validation for my skills.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy it on different levels. Um, but then I don't think I have found anyone to do my own hair.
Hmm.
So that is something that's like a small heartache of mine. But then, yes,
Hmm.
what were you saying?
Someday you'll find your someone.
Yes, I shall. I shall. Thank you.
Do you ever turn to meme culture or your other hobbies and special interests as a coping mechanism to deal with the struggle of coming to terms with
Um,
yeah.
um, so as a coping mechanism, I would say yes. Like just some time ago, we were talking about how when I'm like intensely consuming media that way, not restricted to memes, but then I also go on binge watching things, right? Sessions, marathons, all by myself. And it helps me put off the negative thoughts and the disturbing thoughts that I have in my head. Unfortunately, there have been phases when, like, I put a lot of time into seeking that disconnect because it's afraid to confront your own thoughts. It's just something you don't want to do. If you don't want to do it, why would you do it? Again, stuck in that same loop, right? But then, like, yes, as a coping mechanism, it's definitely straight up mindlessly consuming content. Like, these are words that I choose very deliberately,
Hmm.
but then yes, like that works for me on some level. I am aware and I can acknowledge that it is not the healthiest thing to do, it is not the most productive thing to do, but then it helps me hold on, it helps me survive, so it's okay.
One of the things that we spoke about prior to the interview, and I agree with you, it is quite undeniable that the current education system does not work for everyone. And you mentioned that you find yourself increasingly disillusioned with systemic change. So, how do you envision yourself dealing with this challenge?
So I think I am chasing something that I think would have benefited me when I was growing up, right? So
Hmm.
for a lot of us, we don't learn life skills from our parents. Like some very fortunate people do, and I'm very, very glad for them. But that experience is not the same for all of us.
Yeah.
So like going from there, I think I want to share the skills that I've picked up on, the life hacks that I've hoarded, and basically how I am figuring out navigating my life as a neurodivergent person, tackling executive dysfunction, tackling this and that. I think I want to share this knowledge that I've gained with other people who may be going through the same things, or who may otherwise just find it beneficial to have, to find more efficient ways of doing things. So I would like to bridge the gap that we have between formal communication and real life. So, how to talk to people, how to prioritize your tasks, how to be wise with money, and anything like that. I don't have a specific niche in mind.
Right.
But then, yes, I would like to be a holistic educator who shares this kind of knowledge with the people who need them. And I feel like that way I would be helping everyone survive in a world that is very hostile. But in the time that the world continues to remain what it is, we need to keep moving ahead. So that is how all of this gets adjusted, or like is sitting in my head. This is
Right.
how the thought process flows.
And you mentioned that you don't have a specific niche in mind, and I don't think you can have a specific niche in mind because like it has to be holistic. Um,
Yeah, otherwise
yeah, yeah,
there's no. I don't see
yeah,
the point if not for
exactly.
that.
Um, so that does sound like quite the challenge, but it is also an extremely commendable one. So we wish you all the best in this endeavor. So Sujita, as our time to bid adieu approaches, you've we've talked about memes quite a bit and about you being a humor enthusiast. Can you share a recent favorite meme or joke that actually made you laugh out loud?
This is going to be very underwhelming, but it was a picture of a board of a cafe. The name of the cafe was Cafe 69. That's it. That's the joke.
Ah, ah,
But
classic.
I'm so amused by it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
yeah.
amused by it. Who went and decided to name their cafe that? And I hope they're making good money, is all I can say. Because they did a good job picking out their name.
Yeah, I saw two traffic signs. Oh, well, not traffic signs, like those, you know, those billboards and signs you have that talk about safe driving. I saw two of those. One of those was donate blood, but not on the streets, which is funny. It's I
Dark.
yeah, it is dark, but it's funny. It's a solid like B plus A minus. But the one that I really want to talk about was someone got paid to write this billboard, and it said, "Hug your kids at home, but belt them in the car."
Oh God, no.
Yeah,
Like, I am very surprised that that ended up on an actual sign.
exactly,
Um,
precisely.
it's fun how such little things, little miscommunications can translate into such a big shift in the meaning, like
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
intended meaning. Good God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
All right,
um,
Sujita, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been absolutely wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun, like going through this conversation, and like thank you so much for helping me along the way. To those of us watching, I wanna request you to like and share this video, and please give the mesh. Yeah, please subscribe to the mesh. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Sujita. And goodbye.